Hey guys, I'm Madison and welcome back to my channel. Today I have some brand new manga recommendations for you. So today's manga recommendation video is going to be focusing on romance manhwas. Now if you are not aware what a manhwa is, you're totally fine. I didn't really realize what they were until a few years ago. So a manhwa is actually a webtoon comic or manga that is published in Korea. The other version of this is a manhwa, and this is from China. So recently I've just been loving some of these webcomics that I've been reading, and they're webcomics because they are originally published in their native language, and then the way that they get translated over is onto these specific websites that you have to like pay for or like get points. So we do have 3 websites that you can read all of these on. I will leave each of the links to each of these manhwas down below, so you can just click on it and it'll lead you to where you can read it. This is all legal methods, don't worry. So the 3 websites are going to be Webtoon, Tappytoon, and Tapas. All 3 of these also have their own apps on the phone, so you can read it either way. I definitely prefer to read them on the phone because I can just, scroll. And yeah, I'm super excited. I have 6 of them to recommend to you guys today, and if you guys do enjoy it, let me know in the comments and I will make another one. So the first one is The Reason Why Raeliana Ended Up at the Duke's Mansion. So we follow Yoonha, and she, after passing away in her life, ends up waking up as Raeliana. And Raeliana is actually a side character in a popular novel that was back in her world. And because she's read the story before, she knows that Raeliana is destined to be poisoned by her betrothed in order to be the catalyst for the plot. But Yoonha doesn't want to die again, so using her knowledge of the plot and what is to come within the novel, she ends up convincing the male protagonist, who is the second crown prince, to be her fake fiance for 6 months. She does this so she can avoid being poisoned by her current betrothed and lead him off her scent so that she can then live her own life and not die at a young age again. But Raeliana begins to get a little nervous when she realizes that the male protagonist is a little more of a devil than she thought. This one is so much fun because you have this girl who's like, okay, I'm not gonna die again, like this is not happening, and so she's very conniving and she's trying to be smart in the way that she goes about everything, but it's very difficult because this character has already lived her whole life up until this point and everyone expects a certain thing from her. And then when she finally does become the fake fiance of the second crown prince, her life completely changes, and so she's having to kind of figure out what she's going to do, and she's not romantically interested in him and he's not romantically interested in her. But there's always that little bit of tension, and it's just really fun. And I also think that the art style is gorgeous. Then we have Beware the Villainess. Oh, I love this one so much. So we follow a girl who I just realized all these are kind of, oh, this girl died and then she wakes up in someone else's body in a different life. Anyway. So we follow a girl who dies and wakes up in the body of Melissa Fodderbrat. And Melissa is actually the villainess in a popular otome game. So because she wakes up in her body, she knows kind of the way things are going to go. And that if the female protagonist ends up picking the crown prince or some of the other characters, she is destined to either die or be exiled. And she doesn't really want that. Not only that, but Melissa Fodderbart's character line is that she's madly in love with the crown prince even though he consistently cheats on her and is a complete and utter playboy, and he doesn't change his playboy ways until he meets the female protagonist. So she decides, no, I'm not gonna let the storyline go as it is. I'm not gonna sit here and just be cheated on all the time for a guy I'm not even interested in. And so she tries to break off her betrothal with the crown prince. As you can guess, that does not go well, and it is completely hilarious. I really love it because by denouncing her betrothal, she decides to kind of live her life as a duke's daughter and just kind of take advantage of this prestigious part that she has in the world, and she's just really badass, and she's not afraid to take on the role of being a villainess in order to get what she wants. And it's fun to see a character that does embrace the villainess role and doesn't kind of just throw it to the wayside just because they've inherited this body. Not only that, but she's actually trying to protect the protagonist from these awful choices in the otome game, because she quickly comes to realize that just because they seemed fine in the otome game doesn't mean that in real life they're actually viable options for this protagonist. And so she ends up becoming best friends with the protagonist and trying to protect her, and it's just, I love it. It's so funny. Then we have What It Takes to Be a Villainess. So we follow Hwa Young, and after finding out that her boyfriend is cheating on her with her best friend, she ends up falling into a river and dying. She ends up waking up as Satyana Kalon, who is the sole heir of House Kalon. Hwayoung, once inheriting Satyana's body, gets memories of this girl's life and finds out that she is a cruel and calculating villainess. So she tries to kind of live the life of Satyana and try to make herself a better person, because she really doesn't want to be a villainess. She doesn't want to be this horrible person. But everything changes when she's chosen as one of the Reginas, which is a Empress candidate chosen by the Crown Prince. He chooses Satyana because she is the person that everyone expects to be chosen as one of the two candidates, and then he also picks another girl who is kind of not well known in society. Now Satyana is thrown into a palace full of conspiracy, and she has to take on her villainous role in order to survive. If she does not become the villainess everyone expects her to, her family name will be tarnished. I love this one because you kind of see her calculating a lot of the time in trying to decide, when should I behave as the villainess that everyone expects me to, and when can I just be myself and be a nice person? And kind of seeing that shift in how she kind of manipulates the way that the palace is working is really interesting, because she kind of starts to realize that, you know, just living her own life and kind of just being a Regina candidate and knowing, oh, it's fine if I'm not chosen, I don't really care. That then she begins to realize that there's actually a lot she can do by being the new Empress, and that she can make a lot of changes to this world that she kind of knew about in her own past life, which is, you know, in the real world. Then we have the Abandoned Empress. This is a really pretty one. So in this storyline, there was an oracle that foretold the birth of the woman who would become the Crown Prince's betrothed. And through her birth and through her betrothal to the Crown Prince, they would then foretell a very prosperous empire. Shortly after this, Aristia of House Monique was born, and everyone believed that she was the girl from the prophecy, which made sense because House Monique was very close to the royal family. So Aristia was pretty much raised her entire life with a lot of pressure on her to become the perfect next empress. However, very close to the time where she's about to be crowned empress, a mysterious foreign girl ends up appearing out of the royal lake. Kind of like how in these past ones you see, oh my god, this girl gets transported from the real world into this fantasy world. It's that kind of a thing. And they start taking on the prophecy as a different thing. They're like, oh my god, this girl is brought from a different world, like she's come out of the water, like she must be the prophesized one. And so Aristia is thrown aside. She is given all the responsibilities of being an empress, but without the title, and so this girl can kind of just flounce around and live her life. And so she gets pretty pissed, and then she ends up getting executed. So she dies, and then she is reborn as a child again, so she gets to recreate her entire life. And this time around, she decides that she's not going to fall for the Crown Prince, and she's going to instead inherit House Monique and not become an empress. This one's really fun because you kind of know how it's going to go, and you see her take on the life from a very young age. Again, not like the ones where like, oh, we'll go back a year and now you can have a restart. Like, no, she goes back to the very beginning, in which she can then form different alliances and form different friendships, and you see the way that she kind of calculates the way that she wants things to kind of progress and the different ways she wants to take on her life. So one of the biggest things is House Monique is very well renowned for, you know, its fighting capabilities and kind of being a guard to the Crown Prince and the royal family. And so she starts to, you know, kind of pick up on learning fighting and sword skills, and that's like a really cool section of this that takes place, and I really do enjoy it, and it's really fun to read, and just the different kind of romantic subplots that you can see brewing is really fun. Now we have a relatively new one, and that is Your Throne. This was a very stark art style, but I really love the way that it is drawn. It's very dark, and I really love the kind of atmosphere that is created from the artwork. So you follow Lady Medea Salone, and she was raised ruthlessly as a child to become the perfect future princess. And when I say ruthlessly, I mean like ruthlessly. Like, her childhood sucked. But just before she's supposed to be chosen as the future princess and announced to the world, the Crown Prince ends up purposely tarnishing her family name and naming them murderers, so that he can instead label the Lady Psyche as his future betrothed. And so on the day that Psyche is supposed to be anointed in the temple with, you know, like a whole bathing ritual, she ends up sneaking in, and they end up fighting and falling into the temple waters together. When they awaken from this kind of drowning, they have switched bodies. Medea is very happy because she's like, oh my god, I'm gonna be the future empress now because I'm in Psyche's body, like everything's gonna work out, like this was meant to be. But then she quickly realizes that Lady Psyche is merely a pawn, and that there's a much bigger conspiracy going on, and that maybe Medea was put in Psyche's body not for her own benefit, but for Psyche's benefit to keep her alive. This is a really interesting one because they switch bodies, they don't know what they're doing, and they both have such completely different roles in society and how they're viewed by people, because Medea is completely feared by everyone because she's super ruthless, and her family is known for kind of assassinating people. And then you have Psyche, who is like this very sweet girl. She was hidden for most of her life, and everyone thinks she's just like a complete utter peach. And so As I said, this is a very new one that's coming out periodically at the moment, and so I'm not too far through it, but it's been really interesting so far, and it has a completely different tone from everything else that I've mentioned on this list because it has such a darker kind of aura surrounding it. And then the last one I have has two translation names, so I'm just going to tell you them both. The first name is Sincerely I Became a Duke's Maid, and the second title for it is A Tender Heart, A Story of How I Became the Duke's Maid. Evelina wakes up in a novel as the extra maid in the household of a disgraced and cursed duke. This duke, Alejandro, is actually a side character in the story, and he is destined to kind of fawn over the protagonist but not actually get her. He's like the secondary love interest. But when Evelina wakes up as the maid, it is when he is still a young child. So she decides to make it her goal to befriend the young duke in order to kind of foster him because he was her favorite character in the novel and she kind of wants to see him succeed. However, it turns out the plot of this novel is not going to go as she thought because the addition of her as an extra character ends up throwing a lot of things off kilter. And it's just a very intriguing storyline because she's been put in there as an extra, as a side character who's not really supposed to have any role in this, and kind of seeing that as a way that then alters the plot is very interesting. Plus, she's a very headstrong person and she's very determined in the way that she's in this world now. Even though she came from a regular world, she was very accepting of her role in this world and kind of seeing how she could kind of just enjoy her new life here. But yeah, that's all 6 of the manhwas I wanted to recommend to you guys. And if you did enjoy this video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more of me, let's go to my channel. And until next time, thanks a bunch, guys. Bye!